You probably think you know what a heart attack looks like. The sudden grip across the chest, the arm going cold, someone falling to the floor clutching their shirt. Hollywood has shown us this scene 1,000 times. But here's what almost nobody tells you. After you turn 60, the most lethal cardiac episodes don't announce themselves at all. They arrive silently, they build in the darkness, and by the time symptoms appear, it's already too late. What terrifies me most as a physician is this. These deadly events are almost always set in motion by something you did in the hours before you closed your eyes. Something so routine, so innocent, that you'd never connect it to what happened while you were asleep. My name is Dr. Mehmet. I've been a cardiovascular surgeon for nearly 2 decades. In that time, I've operated on hundreds of hearts. I've seen what blocks an artery. I've witnessed what tears through vessel walls. And I've noticed something that haunts me to this day. The same mistakes appear again and again in patients who had absolutely no idea they were gambling with their lives every single evening. Today, I'm going to reveal 5 of those mistakes. 5 seemingly harmless habits that are silently preparing your heart for catastrophe while you rest. And then I'll walk you through exactly how to reverse them, starting tonight. What I'm about to share could genuinely save your life. So please, stay with me until the end. Here's something that catches most people off guard. Your heart doesn't clock out when you fall asleep. It shifts into a different operating mode. In a younger, healthier person, nighttime brings a natural decline in blood pressure, typically dropping 15 to 20% below daytime levels. Heart rhythm becomes steadier, arterial tension eases. It's the body's built-in recovery system, running maintenance while you're unconscious. But once you cross 60, this protective mechanism begins to falter. Arteries lose their flexibility. Pressure control becomes erratic. The hormonal guards that once protected your cardiovascular system during sleep begin to weaken significantly. The safety margin shrinks dramatically. Imagine your heart as a factory. During waking hours, there are multiple supervisors, backup systems, redundancies everywhere. But at night, most of those supervisors go home. The factory runs with a skeleton shift. That's fine when the machinery is young and well maintained. But in a system that's been running for 6 decades, any added stress during that vulnerable shift becomes exponentially more dangerous. This is why the window between midnight and 6 in the morning is statistically the deadliest for people over 60. Not during the stressful commute, not during the busy afternoon. The quiet hours, the hours when you think you're safe. That's when your evening choices catch up with you. And what happens during those 6 dangerous hours is determined almost entirely by what you did before turning off the light. The food you consumed, the medication you swallowed or forgot to swallow, the temperature you set, choices that felt meaningless. Let me show you why they're not. Starting with the one that shocks my surgical patients more than any other, let me ask you something personal. What time did you finish eating last night? And what exactly did you eat? I ask every single one of my patients this question during consultations, and you'd be stunned by how many people over 60 tell me they ate dinner around 8:30 or 9 o'clock. Sometimes even later, a substantial meal, chicken curry, biryani, fried food, rich sauces, followed by sitting on the sofa, then heading straight to bed an hour later. I completely understand how this happens. Work runs late, family gatherings go long, decades of habit. But from a cardiac perspective, this pattern is sabotaging your heart in ways you can't see. When you consume a large meal, your digestive system requires a massive surge of blood flow. Your heart must pump significantly harder to meet that demand. Blood pressure climbs. Triglycerides, the fatty molecules circulating in your bloodstream, shoot upward within 2 to 4 hours after eating. Now here's where it gets dangerous. You're asking your body to do 2 completely contradictory things at once. You need intense digestive activity, which demands cardiovascular effort. And you're trying to sleep, which requires your heart to ease into recovery mode. These 2 biological imperatives are at war with each other. And in someone over 60 with any degree of arterial narrowing or stiffness, that war creates real damage. Multiple research studies have demonstrated that eating within 2 to 3 hours of lying down is linked to sustained high blood pressure throughout the night, increased episodes of acid reflux that can trigger chest pain and mimic cardiac symptoms, and a measurably higher risk of cardiovascular events during sleep. The solution is genuinely straightforward. Finish your largest meal by 6:30 at the latest. If you must eat later, keep it minimal. A small portion of protein and vegetables. Nothing heavy, nothing greasy. Does your evening eating pattern match what I just described? More people say yes than you'd ever imagine, and not one of them had ever connected it to heart risk. Now, this next one is critically important because this is where I see the most preventable deaths. If you're over 60 and you take medication for high blood pressure, and statistically about 2/3 of people in your age group do, then when you take that medication is just as important as whether you take it at all. Most doctors never explain this clearly enough. For the average person, blood pressure follows a rhythm. It climbs in the morning, stays elevated through midday, dips naturally at night. But a large percentage of people over 60, especially those already diagnosed with hypertension, lose that nighttime dip entirely. Their blood pressure remains high through the night, or even spikes dangerously in the pre-dawn hours between 3 and 5 in the morning. This phenomenon is called nocturnal hypertension. Most people have never even heard the term, but it kills more people than almost anyone realizes. Here's why it's so dangerous. During sleep, your arterial walls aren't braced for impact. A sudden pressure surge at 3 in the morning strikes those walls with far more force than an equivalent surge at 3 in the afternoon. It's more likely to rupture unstable plaque sitting inside a coronary artery, more likely to trigger a clot, more likely to send someone directly to the emergency room or worse. If you're taking your blood pressure pills only in the morning, the protective effect may have completely worn off by the time you actually need it most. If you forget doses or skip them, you're leaving yourself exposed during the most dangerous hours. What should you do? Schedule a specific conversation with your physician about medication timing. Ask them directly whether your pills should be taken in the evening instead of the morning. This conversation takes less than 3 minutes. It could genuinely save your life. There's compelling evidence from major clinical trials, including research published in the European Heart Journal, showing that evening administration of antihypertensive medication dramatically reduces nighttime cardiovascular events. This isn't a minor tweak. This is a potentially life-saving change. Don't assume your current schedule is optimal just because it's always been that way. In cardiology, timing is everything, and most patients have never once discussed this with their doctor. Now let me ask you something. Do you know someone who snores loudly at night? A partner, a family member, maybe yourself? That deep, rattling sound that fills the bedroom. Most people dismiss it. They joke about it. They nudge their partner and roll over. I don't dismiss it. After 2 decades in cardiovascular medicine, I treat loud snoring as a warning signal until I have proof otherwise. Sleep apnea is one of the most overlooked and underdiagnosed conditions affecting adults over 60. Current estimates suggest more than 1/3 of older adults have it, and the overwhelming majority have never been tested, never been treated, and have absolutely no idea what it's doing to their heart every single night. Here's what occurs during an apnea episode. Your airway collapses. You stop breathing for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, sometimes 40 seconds or longer. This can happen 30, 40, even 60 times per hour. Each time it happens, the oxygen level in your bloodstream plummets. Your brain detects the emergency and triggers a full stress alarm. Adrenaline floods your system. Cortisol spikes. Heart rate and blood pressure surge violently. Your heart essentially gets shocked awake while the rest of your body remains asleep. Now imagine this happening 50 times in one night, every single night, for years. The cardiovascular damage is not subtle. Sleep apnea has been directly linked to a 3-fold increase in heart attack risk. Read that number again. 3 times higher. It significantly increases the likelihood of dangerous heart rhythm disorders like atrial fibrillation, which itself raises stroke risk dramatically. It accelerates the hardening and thickening of artery walls. And because the sufferer is unconscious during all of it, most people don't realize anything is wrong until a major cardiac event forces them to find out. The warning signs aren't always obvious. Yes, loud snoring is one, but watch for other clues. Morning headaches that fade as the day progresses, feeling completely exhausted despite sleeping 7 or 8 hours, waking up multiple times to urinate, a sensation of choking or gasping during the night, waking with a parched mouth. If any of these describe you, talk to your doctor about scheduling a sleep study. Here's what I tell every patient directly. If you snore heavily, you're over 60, and you have any cardiovascular history whatsoever, getting evaluated for sleep apnea is not optional. It's mandatory. The treatment, usually a CPAP machine, isn't glamorous, but the research on its protective effects is extraordinary. Patients who use CPAP consistently show measurable drops in blood pressure, reduced rates of arrhythmia, and significantly lower cardiac event rates. One device. One nightly habit. Enormous protection. This next habit is driven by completely logical thinking, which is precisely why it's so dangerous. Many people over 60 intentionally restrict fluid intake in the evening. The reasoning makes perfect sense. They want to avoid waking up at 2 in the morning needing the bathroom. Interrupted sleep is frustrating. Getting up at night increases fall risk, especially in the dark, so they stop drinking water after 5 or 6 in the evening. I understand the logic completely, but from a cardiovascular standpoint, going to bed even mildly dehydrated creates a serious risk that almost nobody recognizes. When you're dehydrated, your blood becomes thicker, more viscous. It flows less easily through your vessels. For someone young with healthy arteries, that's manageable. For someone over 60 dealing with arterial plaque and stiffness, it's a completely different situation. Thick blood moves sluggishly through already narrowed passages. It's far more prone to clotting. And here's the timing issue most people never consider. During sleep, your heart rate naturally slows down. Blood circulates more slowly anyway. Now combine slower circulation with thicker blood in a body that's been motionless for hours, in arteries that may already be partially blocked. That combination, dehydration plus slow heart rate plus immobility plus vascular disease, is one of the primary reasons strokes and heart attacks peak in the early morning hours. The fix is remarkably simple. Drink 1 full glass of water before bed, just 8 ounces. That's enough to prevent your blood from unnecessarily thickening overnight. Keep another glass on your nightstand for when you wake. That slight thirst you feel at 2 in the morning isn't just discomfort. It's your body asking for something your heart desperately needs. You don't have to choose between protecting your sleep and protecting your cardiovascular system. Here's one final habit that surprises almost everyone because it seems too simple to matter. What temperature is your bedroom at night? Most people have never once considered this question from a cardiac perspective. They think about comfort, personal preference, but your cardiovascular system has a preferred temperature range, and outside that range, your heart works significantly harder than it should. Let's start with a room that's too warm. When your bedroom temperature rises above 22 degrees Celsius, roughly 72 Fahrenheit, your body struggles to release heat all night long. Blood vessels dilate trying to cool you down. Heart rate remains elevated. You lose fluid through sweating, which circles us back to the dehydration problem. And critically, your sleep quality deteriorates. You spend less time in deep restorative sleep, where your heart gets its essential overnight recovery. Now the opposite. A genuinely cold bedroom, below 16 or 17 degrees Celsius, creates a different cardiovascular strain. Cold triggers vasoconstriction. Your blood vessels tighten to preserve core warmth. Blood pressure rises. Your heart must push against increased resistance. For someone with existing coronary disease or hypertension, that nighttime pressure elevation is dangerous. The optimal range for sleep and cardiovascular protection sits between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius, 65 to 72 Fahrenheit. That window keeps your body thermally neutral. Vessels stay relaxed. Heart rate remains low and steady. Sleep stays deep. One thermostat adjustment. Real protection. Everything I've described might feel overwhelming, but when you step back and look at all 5 habits together, what you're actually seeing is a blueprint. A simple, practical evening routine that protects your heart without upending your entire life. I call it the Cardiac Safe Evening Protocol. Here's what it looks like. Between 6 and 6:30, finish your main meal. Lean protein, vegetables, reasonable portions. Not excessive, not restrictive. Just sensible food at a sensible hour, giving your heart a full 4 hours to settle before sleep. At 7 o'clock, water and medications. If your doctor hasn't specifically discussed medication timing with you, make that your next appointment topic. Evening dosing could be dramatically more protective. Between 7:30 and 9, your wind-down period. A short walk, light reading, calm conversation. Step away from screens, especially bright phone displays that suppress melatonin and keep your nervous system activated far longer than it should be. By 9, prepare your bedroom. Adjust the thermostat. Open a window briefly if needed. Set water on the nightstand. This takes 90 seconds. By 10, you're in bed. And here's one final detail that costs nothing. If you snore, or if anyone has mentioned you stop breathing during sleep, sleep on your side instead of your back. Back sleeping dramatically worsens airway obstruction. A simple position change can reduce apnea episodes significantly while you pursue formal testing. Dinner by 6:30, water and pills at 7, calm evening until 9, room prepared by 9, bed by 10, on your side. The science behind this routine is solid. The question is whether you'll actually implement it. That's a question only you can answer. Let me be completely honest with you. Not as a content creator, as a surgeon. I have stood in an operating room at 4 in the morning, holding a heart that stopped beating because a clot formed overnight in a vessel that was already dangerously narrow. I have walked into waiting rooms at sunrise to face families who went to bed the night before with absolutely no warning that anything was wrong. I have reviewed medical charts of patients who were planning vacations and family celebrations the week before they died. And case after case, the contributing factors weren't mysterious. They were a late heavy meal, a missed medication, a bedroom set too hot, a body quietly dehydrating, an airway collapsing silently for years while everyone assumed the snoring was harmless. These aren't rare, exotic risk factors. They're the ordinary background of millions of ordinary nights. And that background, accumulated night after night, year after year, becomes the cardiac emergency that nobody saw coming because nobody knew what to look for. Here's what 20 years in the operating room has taught me. Most of the hearts I've had to repair didn't fail because of fate. They failed because of missing information. Information the patient simply never had access to. You have it now. The question is what you're going to do with it tonight. Not next month. Not after your next checkup. Tonight. Let me leave you with absolute clarity. 5 habits. 5 fixes. Finish your main meal by 6:30. Talk to your doctor about evening medication timing. Get evaluated for sleep apnea if you snore or wake exhausted. Drink water before bed and keep it on your nightstand. Set your bedroom temperature between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius. Now here's what I want from you. In the comments below, tell me which of these 5 habits you recognize in your own life. I guarantee at least 2 hit home. You're not alone. Most of my patients see themselves in this list. The difference is you now know exactly what to do about it. If this video gave you something valuable, please share it with someone you care about. Someone over 60 who has never once connected their nightly routine to their heart health. Send it to them today. Your heart has been working for you every second of every day for your entire life. Give it the conditions it needs to keep going. One last critical point. Everything I've shared is general medical information based on current cardiovascular research and my clinical experience. It is not a substitute for individualized medical care. Before making any changes to your medication schedule, please consult your own physician. That's not just legal protection. That's genuine medical advice from someone who wants you still here, still healthy, 10 years from now. Take care of that heart. Good night.